district plus the uses that are permitted by the conditional use.
And can you explain those? What I'm trying to do is look at that balance between what we're approving and what's there today.
If I could, Mr. Foster, in the case history, the specific text I pulled directly out of the conditional use CU 156, storage of alfalfa, hay, farm equipment, and non-agricultural storage, including earthworking equipment, including trucks, tractors, and miscellaneous.
So they could not do what they're wanting to do then?
Correct. I don't believe the current uses fall under what is permitted by the conditional use.
Okay. Another question relates to the access issue. Can this body, which I don't think it can, make a recommendation that shut off the access at the southeast and require access from the north?
My gut's telling me no, that you can't go that far.
Just as a reminder, that access on the north is privately owned by the church. It's not a public right-of-way. Or this road right here is not public right-of-way. It is private drive that the church controls.
Final question is, I'm a little flummoxed by this issue of camping trailers and things being stored back in there. When I read through this, I didn't pick that up as going to be one of the primary uses. How does that fit in here to allow them for this kind of storage? What kind of uses relative to that are going to be allowed with the approval of this?
We may want to have the applicant come up and explain exactly what they're proposing here, because what I'm reading so far is not that clear.
If you read the office warehouse, item A in the PUD, it says all uses permitted by right within office warehouse, office zoning district, except the following. Storage is allowed in office warehouse. What we are doing, just like I showed in the exhibit, is limiting that in this exhibit here. If you read GP2C, the use of vehicle and equipment sales outdoor rentals and sales of equipment is permissible within the restricted area shown on which is the north 120 of the west 370. So this would be the area that's restricted to those outdoor equipment areas.
The applicant's explanation of allowing a vehicle storage yard, the vehicle storage yard is not a permitted use in OW, so the item A does not permit that, and I'm not finding anything in B or C that would permit the storage of vehicles. It allows the parking of vehicles that are for sale, but I'm not finding anything that would allow the storage of them.
Mr. Richardson?
So Scott, you're talking about third-party storage, rental spaces that would not be allowed, right?
The vehicle storage yard is actually just storing vehicles for greater than 72 hours as a principal use of the property, as opposed to an accessory use like what you might be able to store a boat or a camper on a residential property as accessory in certain locations.
So it would not be allowed here.
Yeah, it's not written such that it would allow what's been described that I'm seeing. I know that was the intent of the application, but I don't believe they accomplished it.
The other comment I'd make is that, the church has already explicitly said they're not ready to grant access from the north, so that needs to be out of the equation here.
I think it's important to note, when I met with Scott and when we reviewed our PUD provisions way back in November, we talked about outdoor storage of vehicles and that we have outdoor storage of vehicles, and we had delineated this area for outdoor storage of vehicles, and we had outdoor storage as a land use classification, and we specifically spoke about this, and this was the language we reviewed together as a remedy to that solution. So that, we do store recreation vehicles out there, RVs and boats, and it's under a pole barn and as well as outside. That was part of our case. That's part of what we're trying to get approved here.
And I can concur with that. That is, in fact, we did have that meeting and did attempt to assist them in crafting language that addresses that. But I think it was intended to be included in item C, and then item C really should reference vehicle storage yard if that's the intent.
Mr. Florence?
Am I correct? The outside storage of salvage materials not permitted?
That's accurate, yes.
Mr. Nix, you look like you have a question or a comment.
Well, this whole thing just confuses me to to a certain extent. And I don't mean this to be a shot at Brian or anybody else, but, to me, it's like we should be hearing from the property owner. If we've got weeds, if we've got tires stacked up for a period of time, if we got a fence falling down, then it's their responsibility to get those things cleaned up and not wait until somebody complains about it. I mean, they've had this property for a long period of time. It's obvious to me that they should be cleaning this up. It shouldn't have to come to a body like this and have us sit here and argue about this for 2 hours or whatever it's been. So, yeah, if you go up to the mic, I'd appreciate that.
It is true, the property was not used for a certain amount of time before we took ownership in the property. The two sections of fence that were fallen over, we inherited that. In fact, we were told by the seller, Mr. Kirk, that one section of the fence for sure had been taken down by the homeowner so that he could have access through our property to install a shed in his backyard. And so we were under the impression that that was a shared fence, both of our responsibilities. So the fence that had been taken by the homeowner, we left alone. I will say that Nathan has gone above and beyond what I would say in being a good neighbor. The fence that runs along so that'd be the east side of our property, was not there when we took over the property. And we had no need to put that fence there. But he did, out of respect to the neighbors, knowing that we had some stuff going on, went ahead and built that fence. And we've done this out of our own pocket. We're not a large company with deep pockets. We're two guys who run 3 small businesses out of this property. So anytime we do get a little extra money, we make improvements where we can. So this PUD approval will be a large expense to us, which we're willing to do, not because it suits our needs, but because it's what's right for the neighbors, and we're happy to do that. So the fence that we put up, screening our property from the east neighbor's property, went all the way through the front of their property. And it's always been an intention after funds were rebuilt that we would continue that fence all the way through the property line. So the fence and the non-issues, things that we haven't fixed are not because, or we didn't fix them now because we're scared or worried or we've been dodging it. We're never dodging any repairs whatsoever. So anytime a neighbor has come to us, we're happy. As the church had mentioned, they had some issues. We jumped right on them. We sat at the meeting at the firehouse the other night and heard a neighbor complain about the fence that had fallen over. It was the first we had heard of it. Again, we thought it was a shared deal like any other residential neighborhood where the fence is a shared responsibility. We figured it was a shared responsibility. Once we learned that the neighbor was unhappy, Nathan was there the next day, and if you remember, what was that, yesterday or the day before? It was cold. It was really cold. And Nathan was out there repairing the fence, not for fear, but just being a good neighbor. We're Westsiders. We own our own homes. You can speak to our neighbors. We are excellent neighbors. So any thought that we are not is not true.
Mr. Nix, that answer your question?
Kinda.
Kinda, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whose fault it is the fence fell down, but if it were my fence, I'd set it back up. If I had weeds growing up, I'd cut them down. If I had tires stacked up, I'd fix it. Now, having said all that, I'm a property rights guy. I've known the Kirks forever. I mean, I grew up with the Kirks. I know who they are. I knew the kind of business they had. We never had any problem when it was in there, but as it's been mentioned, I mean, Mays has grown up. Mays Road has grown up. So we now have problems because we're surrounded by houses. So I just think a lot of the problems would be solved if we were just a little more proactive. If I owned the business, if I owned the property, I wouldn't care what the neighbors thought or not. I'd fix it. That's all I'm saying.
I appreciate that comment.
Mr. Green and then Mr. Richardson.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that if you've got a comment.
I have a question for you, sir.
Okay.
Would you be willing to inset the gate here by 50 feet?
I would like to find out what that cost is. Like I said, we're very small businesses. I have no idea. There's a very sturdy, those who knew Kirk knew he overbuilt things well when he wanted to, and that gate was one thing that was a testament to his work. That gate is very sturdy, very secure, works very well.
Unfortunately,
every single one of our, which RV and campers, I mean, we have a pole barn that seats 8 and plus one more unit outside. Those are all friends and family. They all have a gate opener that works from Mays Road. So the notion that they would be blocking that road would be a very rare and not normal circumstance. But I mean, we could look into the cost of bringing that gate back further into our property. I don't think we'd be opposed to that if it's something that we could swing.
Well, but that we can't approve or disapprove based on that condition. You either have to give us a yes or a no, because it would be part of the approval process here. So we can't say, well, we'll approve this if you can afford it. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? I'm not
Right.
trying to be difficult, but just saying.
No, I appreciate that.
The way the process works, we'd either approve it with or without it. So I'm asking if you'd be willing to do that within a reasonable period of time. And I don't know that, Scott, can we put a time on this of 6 months or some other?
Yes, you can put time limits on.
So,
allowance
say within
or
6 months, you could get
improvements.
this done. So,
I'd have to speak with my partner about it. I want to speak on his behalf, but I mean, I'm sure it's something we would look into.
so the answer really is no in that case.
I guess the answer is no. I think we feel like we have a right to that easement. We would like to exercise that right.
Mr. Green?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the PUD as requested and to clear up the language in item D.
Actually, it's in item B and C.
Okay. The two items that reflect the storage of vehicles outdoors.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a second by Mr. Dool. Questions or comments? Mr. Foster?
I would propose a substitute motion or perhaps addition to the original motion. We really don't have a lot of choice to improve this issue of the access and the blocking of the neighbor's drive. It's a terrible situation. So I would make the substitute motion that, as Mr. Richardson opted, that we go with the 50-foot offset of the gate onto the subject property, and everything else, as Mr. Green has stated.
There's a second to that. Questions or comments? The comment I guess I would make to that, if I heard the applicant correctly, is that the storage of camping property is not as a commercial enterprise, but that the people that have storage there all have access to the property. The idea of having to move an entrance back 50 foot for something that is going to rarely be needed, when they've got clickers, when they've got the code that they can get in, that seems to me to be an awfully high expense and a high burden to put on somebody when they've already got use of the property right there. So I think that that's an excessive request, considering the rights that they have.
I think it's been demonstrated otherwise. We've heard enough issues of the problems, and we can't get anything related to the northern access. So, and we haven't even touched upon the maintenance issue. So let's try to improve it.
Other questions or comments? Go ahead, Mr. Green.
Yeah, I think that, knowing that there's 30 foot of easement there on that property, that they have full rights to, even though it may only be 12 to 15 feet wide, they still have 30 feet worth of access rights to that property. And I think it would be an onerous expense on behalf of the property owners to the west to have to build and maintain excess gatage and access to their property that they should already have.
Mr. Johnson.
Doesn't seem like we're talking about a lot of money because the main fence still is there, dividing the single family from the property. And what they build to have that 50-foot inset doesn't have to be the same degree of fence. And all you're doing is moving the gate. So I don't see where the huge expense is, but.
We have a substitute motion. Any additional questions on the substitute motion? All those in favor of the substitute motion signify with the upraised hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, those opposed? 3 opposed. Substitute motion passes 8-3.
Can I get a clarification on who the second was on the substitute motion? Mr. Richardson. Thank you.
Next item, please. I think we're on item 4.4, city zone change from single-family residential to two-family residential, but West 9th Street and North McLean Boulevard. Kathy.
Kathy Morgan for planning staff. Good afternoon, commissioners. You have some additional information that I put at your seats. One is an updated site plan that shows how the parking is going to be addressed for the duplexes. The other item is a copy of the minutes from the District 6 DAB meeting that was held Monday night. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at those. This application is for single family change to duplex zoning. And if you'll look at what the site is, there is one lot, you can see the lot line here, and then this parcel on the east actually is part of this whole parcel, if you can get that. So this has been an area in District 6 where we have seen applications come in for change of single family to duplex. We've just recently done a zone change, like right here, it's not shown on the map because it's not completed. But at the end of 10th Street, where it dead ends into Sheridan Avenue, that was recently approved for duplex zoning. You have B multifamily and limited industrial. All of this is within 1,500 feet or less of this subject site. Staff is recommending approval of this because it complies with the use, which is residential, and it's located within the established central area, so it does conform to our community investment plans. There is, let's see, let me back up. There is access to water and sewer municipal utilities, so there's not an issue with that. I know that there are some areas, parcels in this area that have well water and septic systems, but this has access for city water and sewer. Let's see, what else did I want to mention? The parking, if you looked at let me show you. Okay, so this is the site plan that I handed out. that shows you the garages, one garage for each duplex, and then there's parking on the drive apron so that each side could have 3 spaces if they needed, 1 in the garage, 2 on the parking apron. Let's see. Access would be off Gow and off 9th Street. I had a thought there, it just went out of my head. Let's go. Okay, so this is the vacant portion of the lot or the parcel at 1003 North Sheridan. This is a vacant house there at the corner at Gow and West 9th. And this is looking directly north at that property. This is the vacant area that would be combined with the lot on the corner. And again, this is just looking northeast at the site. This is looking from Gow Street east along the north property line here. Again, you can see that vacant residential structure. Looking east on West 9th Street. Looking southeast at the site. This is the neighborhood across the street on Gow, single-family residential. These are the properties on the south side of West 9th Street, looking from Gow Street southeast. And so staff would recommend, that this will have to be platted also before any building permits can be issued. So if the zoning request to TF3 is approved, then they will go through the platting process before any building permits can be issued for the duplexes. And I will answer any questions.
Questions for Kathy? Seeing none, thank you.
Okay.
Agent or applicant, come forward, please. State your name and address for the record, and you will have
Agent.
10 minutes.
Is there anything particular you want to be clear? Okay.
Kirk Miller, K.E. Miller Engineering, 117 East Louis. We're fine with the staff comments. We did have the DAB meeting, and one of the items they brought up was some street flooding west of this on 9th Street. And I looked, and there's 36-inch storm sewer out in 9th Street right now. So I don't know why there would be flooding back there, but our property also drains the street at 9th Street, where our property is, drains to the east and not to the west. So that flooding that they have is actually upstream of this development. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Questions for the applicant? Mr. Richardson?
Kirk,
Yes.
can you go back to the larger map and kind of show us where that storm sewer is?
If I can get
Kathy,
there.
maybe Kathy can help you there. Yeah,
This
yeah,
map? Okay.
yeah, how about that one?
The storm sewer starts back at Zoo Boulevard, runs all the way along 9th, then turns south on Sheridan to Murdoch, and then heads over Murdoch to the river.
And so where was the flooding?
Well, they'll probably explain it when they speak,
Okay.
but my understanding was they were saying right over in this area.
Okay,
Is that
all right,
correct? Close to, somewhere in this area.
okay.
Close, okay.
Thanks.
Get a better answer later, I guess.
Additional questions? Thank you. Anybody from the audience wish to speak on this issue, come forward, please. State your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Gregory Boyajian, 3325 West 9th Street. I am presenting in opposition to zoning case 2019-0059. Factors for discussing: existing zoning and land use, character of the neighborhood, suitability of application area, detrimental impact, if any, impact on community facilities, neighborhood opposition, and conclusion. This slide represents the staff report background statement showing location of TF3, multifamily, and light industrial zoning with respect to the requested rezoning lots. Continuing, from the previous slide, the recent SF5 to TF3 rezoning were recommended by the DAB6 and approved by the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, in part based on location to existing TF3 zone lots, very close proximity. The number of duplex built on the rezoned lots followed the quantity on the existing TF3 lots. Note, SF5 dwellings dominate the local area, proposed rezoning, and should not be ignored. Character of the neighborhood. From this visual inspection, the majority of the SF5 lots within the area defined by the ownership list are significantly larger in area than the area proposed for each of the 4 duplexes. Proposed rezoning lots are approximately 6,800 square feet, and where several of the existing SF5 lots are in the range of 20,000 square feet. Once TF3 and duplex use is established in the local area with the proposed duplex density, precedent is set for similar and future rezoning. Character of the neighborhood. Neighborhood development started in the late 1940s. Part of La Placida Park Neighborhood Association. Architectural style in the local area are primarily bungalow, ranch, using mix-up materials. In the past 5 to 7 years, lots within the vicinity are area defined by ownership lists have been purchased and improved or were vacant and had SF5 dwellings built. Areas well established with old and new tree growth. The proposed 4 duplexes would be disproportionately out of character with the neighborhood. The suitability of the application area for the use for which it is currently zoned. The staff report indicates that the two properties would need to be platted to allow a total number of 4 duplex.
Sir, your time's up. Could you finish up with 2 more minutes?
Yes, sir.
You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Zone TF3. Though this planning procedure is applicable, it sets a precedent for other local properties that would be purchased side by side to have the same procedure applied. Residents within the boundaries of the ownership list believe that this procedure will encourage the purchasing of local lots disproportionately impacting current SF5 properties. Detrimental impact. Staff report frames this factor as extent to which removal of restrictions will detrimentally affect nearby property, and notes that development standards of the Unified Zoning Code will mitigate any detrimental effects on nearby properties. This approach that the Unified Zoning Code will mitigate sets a precedent for other local properties that would be purchased side by side to have the same procedure applied. Residents within the boundaries of the ownership list believe that this procedure will encourage purchasing of local lots and disproportionately impact currently SF5 properties. Impact on community facilities. During moderate to heavy rains, West 9th Street from the railroad tracks to approximately Guile will flood. This is temporary flooding but lingers for a couple hours. City has noticed this issue in the part by proposing a storm sewer expansion in the area to the river. The project considered flooding from North High Street onto West 9th. The addition of the 4 duplexes plus any possible future T3 lots in the local area will aggravate the problem. Neighborhood opposition, as noted on Monday, the DAB6 voted not to recommend this rezoning case. Conclusion, information presented has honest and fact-based. Facts provided show that the addition of proposed 4 duplexes on the defined lot areas would be disproportionately out of character with local neighborhood and set a precedent for future TF3 zoning. Denial of this rezoning case is requested.
Thank you, sir. Before you step away, let me compliment you on a very comprehensive and professional presentation. Questions for the speaker, Mr. Foster?
Do you happen to know how long this property has been available for sale or vacant?
The property has been let me put it this way. There's two pieces of property. The one piece of property that is vacant has been part of the property to 1003 North Sheridan. And that piece of property has always been maintained and kept up. The property 3318 West 9th Street has been vacant for approximately, or uninhabited for approximately 7 to 8 years, somewhere in that range.
Any additional questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the audience wish to speak on this issue? Bring it back to the agent or applicant for rebuttal. Oh, we got one? Okay, I'm sorry. Please state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
Well, mine won't be near as good as him. I'm Angela Tiger, and my address is 1023 North Gal. I'm basically directly, Oh, no, I don't want the map. A lot of this was brought up at the zoning meeting, but there is a lot of flooding, and I don't know where the sewers are and stuff like that, but every time it rains, it's going up over the sidewalk, and it's there forever. One of my main concerns is we have a school near us, and the traffic is ridiculous. Putting duplexes there is just going to put more kids on the corner of a very busy street. There's nowhere for them to play. There's nothing, it makes no sense for duplexes to go in there. None.
Questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you, ma'am. Is there anybody else from the audience wish to speak on this issue? Please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Ashley Igo. I live at 1003 North Gow. I apologize if some of this has already been said. I thought I was going back to work, and y'all were quicker than I thought. So I live directly across the street from the property where the proposed duplexes are. Excuse me. And my biggest concern is the parking, along with the proximity to the school, the kids coming in and out. I haven't lived there very long. I've lived there about 2 years, and I have noticed the flooding. I haven't been as affected by it as maybe some of my neighbors have been, but that doesn't mean it doesn't occur. I have a big SUV, so it doesn't affect me, but I do see children walking through my yard from the school to go to the houses further down the street. They walk through the flooding, I'm sure, they get wet, their book bags get wet. One of the things that was brought up at the DAB meeting was the proposal for these duplexes does not allow for a yard. There's no place for them to play. They would have to walk back towards the school through the busy traffic just to have some place to throw a ball around. I am a single homeowner. I bought my house about 2 years ago. It's just me. I take a lot of pride and ownership in my property, and I'd like to see more of that in my, I'm out of breath. I'm in my neighborhood. It was very difficult for me to find a house close to downtown. I work just down the street at Fidelity Bank. And I would like to see more single-family homes built in my neighborhood instead of duplexes, instead of more rentals. I feel like we have a lot of that in Wichita right now, and not a lot of properties to buy for someone like myself. Thank you.
Any questions for the speaker? Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Anybody else from the audience wish to speak on this issue? Come forward, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, I'm property owner, or Robert Edgington, property owner of 1040 North Gow, which is one lot south of the corner that they are wanting to rezone. First of all, I do oppose it, along with several other neighbors that couldn't be here, including my wife, which is one. The fourplexes that they are proposed to build will definitely be out of source with the rest of the neighborhood. They're taking 4 buildings and sticking them on a little corner, or it's a big corner, but when they get 4 buildings on there, that means there's 8 apartments or duplexes, not single-family dwelling like it was plotted or laid out or zoned 40, 50 years ago will definitely be out of source from the neighborhood. And there is a flooding problem from the railroad tracks to Gow. And it's really bad if it happens to be in the time frame of people bringing their children to and from school. In fact, when it is that way, I don't even go down 9th Street. I go back up to 13th or around that intersection so I can come in from the north and to my property. I don't know which sewer that they are going to tie into, but there is an extension that goes from 10th south to the adjacent property that they're talking about. I know this for a fact because I petitioned that sewer in the early 80s and had paid specials on it. As far as I'm aware, there are no septic tanks in the area. They've been deleted. Yes, there is well water. It's good water. The aqueous beds were originally in that area, and as far as I know, the water is still fine. As far as the looks of the things, there'll be 4 garage doors facing the streets. If you'll look at their plot plan, all the living space is behind the garages. There'll be 4 double approaches on the corners. Now, how will that affect the traffic, the water, and the school with the traffic?
How much time do you need, sir?
Okay. That's all I have to say.
Any questions?
I'm definitely opposed to it.
Any questions for the speaker? Thank you, sir. Anybody else in the audience wish to speak on this issue? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. Let the agent or applicant, 2 minutes for rebuttal.
As I said before about the drainage, this all drains to the east and then down Sheridan. So issues back there, this really doesn't have anything to do with that. It's not draining off of here and heading back that way. It is going back to the east and out. There is sanitary. It's about right here. It serves the property. It extends onto this property. So there's not an issue with sanitary. Water's out here, so the water's available to the site also. Like we said before, there are duplexes up here, back over in that area. There are duplexes in the neighborhood, just not within that 350-foot radius they were talking about. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Florence?
These are single stories with basements?
I don't know that I can answer that right now. It's up to the builder as to what he wants to build. He has typically put basements in, yes.
Single story.
I don't know. I don't know if it'll be single or a 2-story.
I see another hand. Joe, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, the other duplexes you talk about in the neighborhood, are they as dense as these?
Let me go back to
It looked like they were more of a individual lot, small lot where it'd be in there. But yeah, they are squeezing some on there.
Yeah, this lot at the end of 10th Street is a single duplex because of the size of the lot. This one is also a single duplex, 2 units.
Some multiples up there.
And this is, I don't know how many are in this area, but as you can see, there's several parcels there that have duplexes. I would like to answer Mr. Florence's question. The zoning TF3 and SF5 require or have a maximum building height on the ridge of 35 feet. So That'd be some awful short ceilings. It would seem like if they put 2 stories there.
Any additional questions? Mr. Richardson?
Kathy, question for you. Do these meet the lot coverage ratio in duplex?
Yes, they will, and that will be part of the platting. They're gonna combine, they're gonna replat this lot and this meets and bounds.
What is the lot coverage ratio? I can't remember in duplex.
Duplex is 6,000 square feet for 2 units, 1 duplex building. So this area for this duplex would have to be 6,000 square feet. This one would have to be 6,000 square feet for each of those duplexes.
I assume you've made that calculation and that works?
Yeah, we have, I think, 27,000 square feet out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot coverage ratio per se. There is, as Kathy mentioned, a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet per duplex. And that would be each one of these duplexes would have to be on a 6,000 square foot lot minimum. And then there are setback requirements, and all of the setbacks that are illustrated on the site plan meet the minimum.
Okay, and Kirk, you said you had a total of 27,000 square feet, is that
I
right?
believe that was the number, yeah.
Because it would require 24, is that
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Foster?
Mr. Chairman, I apologize, but I've got to leave for a meeting. I just want to throw into the discussion here, you know, throughout the presentations here, I've been thinking about this concept of the balance of the desired infill from the comprehensive plan in established areas versus maximizing density. And I think in this case, 4 is just simply too many. And so I would make a suggestion that it be 3 units maximum so that it does fit and address the concerns of the neighbors on it. But again, I apologize. I need to exit the meeting.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Richardson?
A question for staff. I'm not sure how you would do that. Is there a way to?
That would require establishment of a protective overlay.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions for the speaker? Saying none, I'll bring it back to the commission.
I move that we approve the request as made and have the 4 duplexes as they requested.
We have a motion to approve as presented. Is there a second to that motion? I'd second. Additional comments? Seeing none, those in favor of the motion signify with the upraised hand. Those opposed? Let's see. Okay, we got 5-5. Motion fails 5-5. Is there a substitute, another motion?
I'd make a substitute motion that they come back with a new proposal with a protective overlay, more in line with what Mr. Foster was suggesting.
That's a recommendation of deferral.
We have a motion to defer. Is there a second to that? There's a second to that?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dool. Sorry, beat you. Additional comments, questions, statements on the new motion? Seeing none, those in favor of that motion, is it upraised hand? Passes unanimously, 10-0.
Is there a deadline date on that deferral?
As soon as they can bring it back.
Okay, and who was the second, please?
Mr. Dool?
Okay, thank you.
Next item is agenda item 4.5, city zone change from SF20 to GO.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave Urett with planning staff. This is a request covering about 24 acres. We're at the southwest corner, roughly, of 53rd Street North and North Meridian. It covers the area outlined in blue on your aerial that's presently zoned SF20 because that land is in the county presently. The aerial is showing the property in question, and you can see from the zoning
We've got LC zoning adjacent to it that is in a community unit plan as outlined in your staff report. And across the street north, 53rd Street is a large area of also LC zoning with a community unit plan. For those that are familiar, this is the Walmart that is along North Meridian, north of 53rd, and we've got a McDonald's roughly sitting right here. The only other commercial business, we've got an auto parts store sitting within the commercial area adjacent to the property. This is all unplatted. It will have to be platted. And the request is to zone this to GO, general office. You can see from the future land use plan, it's envisioned for residential and employment mix and/or residential. They're requesting general office. Pictures of the site. This is looking south at the site from 53rd Street, and you can see it's just all farm ground right now. That's looking west at the site. I'm actually on the north side of the auto parts store, looking west at the property in question, back at the back. This is looking along 53rd Street North. The subject property is on your left. You see the Walmart entrance coming off 53rd. That's looking east along 53rd. You can see the McDonald's here on the left. The lights in the background, that is Meridian. And that's a little closer look at the McDonald's that's to the north, the Walmart that's to the north. That is looking south along Meridian. I'm actually sitting in the parking lot in access for the auto parts store and looking south along Meridian. And that kind of gives you an idea of what's happening in the area. I know there was a question raised in discussion I had with some of the commission members about when does the CUP come into play. In reality, the CUP provision in the zoning code only applies when the applicants are requesting LC or GC zoning. It's only for commercial. It is an option that they can offer, but we cannot request it. And they're asking for GO, which would be general office uses, and makes that, if that zoning is approved, then we're talking general office uses only. With respect to other site improvements, that'll be addressed to a great degree when the plat is brought forward, whenever they pulled the string on that question. I would add, although we don't have an aerial showing the GIS with the utility information, but there is a sewer line that comes along the west side of the property that's in place. This is also a sewer facility for the city, sitting at this location, which I presume is a pump station. And then other sewer lines that go out to Meridian. Water is in Meridian. Water is in 53rd from the city. This land is in the county right now. It is scheduled to go to the Citizens Advisory Board for District 4 on Monday, so we've not heard from that group yet. But we all kind of anticipate when the plat comes forward, it's probably going to end up annexed in the city. We're aware of that. It's just that it's not there right now. So I did hear from Councilwoman Claycomb about this, because apparently she had been contacted and asked about it, but I told her, no, it is in the county and it's not inside the city as of yet. So she's aware of what's happening with that and never heard anything back from her on this issue at all. Have not had any contact with anybody regarding this particular case up to this point in time. And as I said, the District 4 group will hear this next Monday night, which, as a sideboard note, will be the first time, at least in my experience, that they will have heard any zoning case, because they've only been organized for about a year, and up until this point, they had not heard any zoning cases. So that will be a first for them as well. Our Our staff report says we're recommending approval. We find that the zoning category is not out of character with what's happening in the area, given the commercial activity occurring regionally around the property. We're aware of the activity to the south being in residential uses, but as it moves forward and actually reaches the point that we've got development that might happen, they're going to have to address to whatever extent they've got buffering issues, which really will only be on the southeast corner or the west side, but because all the property to the south is zoned LC, that is adjacent to the property except for this corner. And of course, you've got activity on the west that's zoned residential, but there is a mature hedgerow on that property line right now. So with that, I'll be happy to answer the questions.
Questions for staff? Shannon, thank you, Dave. Agent or applicant, come forward, state your name and address for the record, and you have 10 minutes.
Russ Avey, applicant, or agent for the applicant with Boffman Company, 315 South Ellis Street here in Wichita. I don't really have anything to add. I know that we have several members of the audience here to address you, so unless there's any specific questions, I will hold my comments until my rebuttal.
Any questions for us? Seeing that, thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Anybody from the audience wish to speak on this issue, come forward, please. State your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Kurt Bachman. I'm a managing member of CBB North Lakes LLC, which is the development corporation or entity for the moorings. We own property on the west and south. Can we go back to that original slide, please? That one's good. Yeah. So I guess I don't really have concerns at this point. I understand from Mr. Yearout that the CUP comes later. My questions would be, or maybe clarifications. We have platted single-family lots. It actually shows this encroaching onto those lots. There's a drainage ditch that separates those, but I'm assuming if this zoning was okay, I see. If this zoning was passed, there would be some buffering, and that's done at the CUP level. Is that what I understand? That was one question. I'm also concerned, we do own the property to the immediate south that's zoned LC. And if we were supposed to have to build a wall between it and the residential, if this went to GO, would that wall be required still between an LC and a GO? That's one of my questions. The last question, I guess, is we did plat some GO down here that was adjacent to neighborhood retail, but the fact that it was within 1,000 feet of the residential, we were limited to 35 feet. I guess my concern is if this becomes apartment buildings, which is, I guess, allowed in a GO, that we might have really tall apartment buildings abutting just right here. We've got a house, there's a house right here on lot 5. We've got these lots that kind of wrap around, and obviously some of those back up to RLC already. But we were limited to 35 feet in all the areas where we were close to residential. So that would be my only question for Russ maybe, or the staff.
Kurt, why don't you hold tight and we'll have staff take the first crack at that.
I'm sorry, what?
Just hold tight.
Oh, okay.
Couple items. The masonry wall on the north line of his property that's zoned LC, if this was zoned GO, that would not be required to be constructed.
Okay.
The screening from the residential property on the west, that would be required at the time of building permit on the property. And then the final piece on the 35-foot height limitation, that would apply within 50 feet of the residentially zoned property. The buildings would be limited to 35 feet in height, and then they'd be allowed to increase in height with greater setback.
I see. And there's already at least that with that drainage ditch, so, but they would still be required to have some kind of a privacy wall or,
That's correct. It'd be required to have screening as well as landscape buffer.
oh, okay, appreciate that.
Any other questions for the speaker? Thank you, Kurt. Appreciate that. Anybody else in the audience wish to speak on this issue? Okay, come to the podium, please. State your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Kathleen Hankins. I reside at 5115 North Boardwalk with my husband, Tom. And if I could step over for a second, I'll show you where our house is.
Ma'am,
Where is the mouse? Thank you. Okay, gotcha. Okay, we are right there.
whoops.
Did I not get that right?
Stay right there, Dave.
Don't click? What do I do now? Just point it out right
You go
there.
right there. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Like most neighborhoods in this city, the Moorings is a very well cared for a neighborhood that people respect and take care of their property. The Bachman family for many decades has done a fine job of expanding the neighborhood and contributing in that way to the welfare of the city. My biggest concern is the proximity of the property that you're wanting to change the zoning. It's about one house lot from our house. I'm concerned, I know there's retail eventually would be there. We look forward to some retail at that corner being added. However, just, I guess we get into how it's done and when it's done and what the guarantees are on how well it's done. Kind of already covered the screening information with Kurt. Just to note, you might see the mature tree line that's been pointed out. Let's see. Oh, my little mouse, there it is, along in here. Which has been very helpful, and new trees are nice, you need them too, but if the development continues, I would hope that the mature tree line would also stay. I don't know that there are any noise issues. I think about parking lot lights. Are there requirements with the heights of parking lot lights, and are they higher than the screening walls? And is that something that the neighborhood would have to see all of the time? How is an issue like that resolved?
Tell you what, do you have any other questions? We'll answer them all together. You got any other questions?
Sir?
Do you have any other questions or concerns? We'll ask them all and then we'll answer each one of them.
Okay, I think it's the how it's done, if it's done, and what would be acceptable to the integrity of the neighborhood. I've seen some neighborhoods that I did not think were done well, and I hope that there would be an improvement on those. So that's all I really have to say.
One of the questions had to do with lighting.
Yes, sir.
I'll let Scott answer that.
So the issue of light poles are limited to 15 feet in height within 200 feet of the residential zoning, and the lights are required to be directed away from the residential zoning.
That's another question I had, okay. Is it possibility of having fencing or screening or a wall the same height as the lights and we wouldn't see them at all? Is that ever done?
No, I would say it's not physically possible to construct the wall that high.
Yeah.
Yes.
Additional questions for the speaker? Seeing that, thank you, ma'am, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the audience wish to speak on this issue? Okay, Russ, you have 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Certainly, I'll try to be brief. One of the things that this really just doesn't illustrate is the fact that this improved drainage waterway continues north and provides the dividing line between our properties to the east or to the west and continues the drainage pattern on to the north. So what we're going to find when you see the plat of this property over time is that we're going to have to do something with drainage. That most likely will be a detention pond facility. The most likely location for that for this particular project would be in this general area. So I think by the fact that we're going to be platting reserves, that some of this buffering issue will be taken care of. I don't know if it was pointed out or if I misheard, but the property owner and the developer of this general office area is not the same as the owner, developer of Johnson Commercial Center, CUP, at the corner. And the last thing I'll point out is that, we see this at 37th and Ridge Road, where we have large acreage general office providing that typical standard transitory zoning, down zoning between the single family and residential uses off of the arterial intersection from the more intensive retail, limited commercial uses at the hard corner. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions for us? Mr. Richardson?
Russ, is multifamily allowed in this zoning?
Certainly.
It is.
Hospitals, medical services, office clearly, all flavors of residential with the exception, I believe, of mobile home, but I'm not certain about that.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you, Russ.
Thank you.
Bring it back to the commission for discussion or action.
Move for approval per staff comments.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hartman, second by Ms. Miles. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, those in favor signify with the upraised hand. Passes unanimously, 10-0. I don't see any other issues. We stand adjourned.